We have never been more connected, and many of us have never felt more alone. This is not a complaint about technology. Technology is great. It is an observation about something more specific. What happens to human beings when the environment shifts from one that demands presence to one that rewards consumption? When depth is replaced by volume, when the act of engaging with life becomes indistinguishable from watching it scroll past. Overstimulation in modern life is not simply about too many notifications or too many hours on a screen. It is about what happens to the mind, the relationships, and the sense of self when input never stops, when the nervous system never fully has a chance to land, when silence feels threatening instead of restorative, and when the most available form of human connection is also, structurally, one of the least nourishing. We have built an environment of breathtaking abundance, and in some of the same ways as the mice of Universe 25, we are beginning to disappear inside it. The Universe 25 experiment was not ultimately about overcrowding. It was about what happens when an environment can no longer support meaningful participation. As Calhoun's colony grew, mice did not simply run out of physical space. They ran out of social roles. Every territory was claimed. Every function was already being performed by someone else. The young mice reached maturity and found that there was nowhere for them to go, nothing for them to do that was genuinely needed. The system was full in a way that made real engagement impossible. What followed was not dramatic, it was quiet and incremental. The mice withdrew. They stopped pursuing behaviors that would have integrated them into the life of the colony. Some groomed themselves compulsively and avoided interaction altogether. They were not suffering from scarcity. They were suffering from a form of saturation that had made depth inaccessible. The parallel to digital life is uncomfortably precise. Our environment is not physically overcrowded. It is cognitively and emotionally saturated. At any given moment, there are more things to watch, read, scroll through, and respond to than any human being could possibly process in a lifetime. We're not running out of input. We are drowning in it. And the response for many people mirrors those withdrawn mice. It's not a dramatic collapse, but a quiet pulling back from the kind of presence that real life requires. The human brain was not designed for continuous stimulation. It was designed to take in, process, integrate, and rest. That cycle, engagement followed by reflection, followed by rest, is not a luxury. It is how learning consolidates, how emotion becomes understanding, and how experience becomes wisdom. When input is constant, though, that cycle breaks. Attention fragments. The capacity for staying focused, for staying with one thing long enough to go deep, erodes gradually and almost imperceptibly until shallow engagement begins to feel normal and depth begins to feel like too much effort. Mental fatigue sets in not as exhaustion, but as a kind of numbness, the inability to care as much about things that used to matter, the preference for whatever requires the least effort to absorb. Digital platforms did not accidentally produce this effect. No, they were engineered to produce it. Variable reward systems, continuous novelty, immediate feedback loops, these are not incidental features. They are the architecture of attention capture, and they work by hijacking the same dopamine pathways that once oriented human beings toward food, relationship, and genuine accomplishment. The brain that was designed to feel rewarded by meaningful effort increasingly seeks the quick return. The slow, deep satisfactions of real life, sustained conversation, creative work, prayer, the gradual building of anything worth building, begins to feel less engaging by comparison, not because they're less valuable, but because the brain has been recalibrated. It's been hijacked. Jehovah designed rest as part of the rhythm of life, not as a reward for productivity, but as a structural necessity for human beings to remain whole. Sabbath is not a religious nicety. It is a design truth. The mind that never stops receiving input is a mind that cannot integrate what it receives. And a person who cannot integrate their experience cannot know themselves clearly enough to live from the inside out. One of the most disorienting features of overstimulation in modern life is how thoroughly it mimics connection while providing so very little of it. We're interacting constantly. Messages, comments, shares, reactions. The volume of social exchange most people engage in daily would not have been imaginable to any previous generation. And yet, study after study, and honestly, most honest conversations, confirm that people feel less known now than ever. This is not mysterious when you examine what digital interaction actually provides and what it systematically leaves out. It is immediate and accessible. It is not present. It offers words on a screen, but not a face reading your face and adjusting in real time. It provides response, but not attunement. The lived experience of someone being genuinely moved by what moves you, troubled by what is troubling you, present to what you are actually carrying rather than to the curated version of it you chose to share. Physical presence communicates things that language cannot. The quality of silence between two people, the way someone moves in closer, the shared experience of being in the same room with the same weather and the same light. These are not decorative features of human relationship. They're the medium through which the deep knowing happens. Strip them away, and you can maintain the appearance of connection, but its substance isn't there. Many people live in this gap, surrounded by interactions, starved for depth, cannot immediately name what is missing. They know something is wrong. They feel it as a vague dissatisfaction, a sense of distance in the middle of their social lives, a hunger that more scrolling never satisfies. That is the experience of isolation wearing the disguise of connection. There's a shift in how people relate to the world that overstimulation both produces and accelerates, and it may be the most consequential one, the shift from participation to consumption. To participate in something is to bring yourself to it, to be changed by it, to contribute something that would be missing if you were not there. Conversation is participation. Creating something is participation. Showing up physically for someone who needs you is participation. These are active and reciprocal. They require something from you, and in the requiring, they form who you are. Consumption is different. It is possible to consume for hours content, entertainment, other people's lives, opinions, outrage, beauty, information, without contributing anything, without being truly present, without being changed in any meaningful way. Consuming can feel like engaging. The emotional arousal is real, but the formation is not happening. This mirrors what Calhoun observed in the withdrawal mice of Universe 25. They were not absent from the enclosure. They were present, but they were not participating. The colony was happening around them, and they were just watching it. They were not living it. The result was not a life, it was the appearance of one. The questions that overstimulation in modern life force us to ask are how much of what we call our social life, our engagement with the world, our daily experience is actually participation, and how much of it is consumption wearing participation's clothes. The answer to overstimulation is not disconnection, it is depth. The brain that has been trained towards shallow and fast can be retrained, but it requires intentional practice. Sabbath rhythm matters here, not as a religious obligation, but as a lived experience of stopping, being present to what is actually in front of you and allowing the integration that constant input prevents. This is what Jehovah built into the fabric of time, not because he needed rest, but because the beings that he made do. Depth in relationships requires the willingness to be physically present, to have conversations that take longer than is comfortable, to stay in the room with complexity rather than reaching for a screen when the moment asks something of you. These choices feel countercultural because they are. They run against the architecture of the environment, but they are what the environment was never designed to provide and what the human soul cannot thrive without. The goal is not a technology-free life. It is a life in which technology serves to form rather than replace it. That distinction requires intentionality. It requires the willingness to notice what the constant input is doing to your attention, your relationships, your capacity for presence, and to choose differently, repeatedly, in the small moments where those choices are actually made. Overstimulation in modern life is a design problem with a design solution, not a technological fix. A return to the rhythms and relational structures Jehovah built into the architecture of human life, rest, presence, depth, contribution, community. These are not remedies for a modern problem. They are the original design, and they are still available to anyone willing to slow down long enough to receive them. In Universe 25 enclosure, the mice that withdrew into passivity were not at peace. They had found a form of survival that required nothing of them, and in the requiring of nothing, they ceased to become anything. Stillness chosen intentionally is not the same as withdrawal. It is presence to what is real. It is the practice of being available to your own life rather than to the endless stream of someone else's. There is something that only happens in the quiet. Jehovah speaks in it. Identity clarifies in it. The things worth contributing become visible in it, not because emptiness is the point, but because the noise was covering something real. And once it is quieted, what was always there beneath it can finally be heard. You do not have to disappear into overstimulation. You were designed for more than consumption. Come back to your own life. It's waiting for you. If you sense that the peace and noise of daily life is the core problem, creation needs the Sabbath speaks directly into the design truth that rest and rhythm are not rewards. They are a condition for being whole. There's a link in the description. Check it out. Until next time, remember to stay healthy in heart.